Alrighty, this is a crazy story from r/confessions where we plunge into a harrowing tale of survival and resilience. A twisted tale of a boy wrestling with a wicked stepmother's grasp. A real-life saga with twists you won't see coming. If you're not already clutching your mouse in anticipation, hit that like and subscribe button if you love an epic fight against adversity. Now, with no further ado, let's dive into the abyss. This is pretty hard for me to post. I've never talked to anyone about this, even my wife doesn't know the full extent of it. But here we go. In 2000, my mother was diagnosed with lung cancer. She was a 2-pack-a-day smoker for about 25 years. She fought hard and was able to extend the short life expectancy the doctors gave her. I'm not sure how long they gave her. I was 10 and they spared me the details. Anyways, she survived for over a year and ended up passing away in February of 2001. I remember it as if it were yesterday. Her best friend came over the very next day as we were in mourning to pay respects and say goodbye to her friend, which is normal and fine. The thing I felt weird about was that same night, the day after my mother's passing, she spent the night with me and my dad. She slept on the couch. At the time, I didn't think too much of it. I had other things on my mind, obviously. Plus, we had numerous family and friends coming by and sleeping over before her passing as well, so I grew pretty used to it. Time goes by, and it seems every other night she's sleeping over. Within the first month of my mother's death, she's finally sleeping in my dad's room with him. During this time, she was respectful and nice. She brought her 2 youngest kids a lot as well, which was nice at the time. Fast forward 3 months, we ended up moving, and she and her 2 kids end up coming with us. By this time, they are already talking about marriage, which I strongly protested, along with every single family member of mine as well. They decide to ignore me and everyone else and get married. The same year, my mother passed away. At first, things were the same as they were, but as time went on, she began to show favoritism to her own kids, which I guess is understandable. But it was to the extent that it grew to be kind of disturbing. She'd let her kids get away with murder. They would taunt me and make fun of my dead mom. They threw ashtrays at me, yelling, "Your mom wants a hug!" She was cremated, so pretty much anything with ash was fair game to use to mess with me. A year goes by in the new house, and me being a skater kid, I frequented the skate park a lot. On my way back home one day, I fell hard. I hit a crack in the road on a very steep and large hill. I was probably going in excess of 20 miles per hour. The board stopped, my body flew, then rolled a few more feet. I was barely able to move, but managed to hobble back, cradling my arm like a baby and screaming at the top of my lungs the entire way home. As I'm walking up, my stepmom intercepts me in the garage and accuses me of overreacting and tells me to stop being a little pansy. I knew there was something wrong with my arm, considering I was physically unable to move it at all. But she wouldn't listen to me, and my dad wasn't home from work yet either. For hours, I waited for him to show up, and when he did, it turned out my stepmom had already talked to him, so he wouldn't listen either. The next day was a school day. I remember this because I was awakened by my stepmom's little cretin of a son, throwing my full backpack onto my chest to wake me up. I woke up screaming. My stepmom comes running to the room and promptly tells me to, "Shut the hell up, you're not hurt. Stop faking it because you're still going to school." Well, I couldn't stop. I was in agony. I was still holding my arm like a baby, so she punched my bicep, in the way your friends would, I guess you could say, and said, "I'm taking your dumb ass to the hospital just to make you feel stupid when they tell you nothing is wrong." Well, upon seeing the doctor, he almost immediately says, "Yup, your shoulder is broken. I can tell by the way you're instinctively supporting your arm." My stepmom was silent. The doctor set up x-rays, and it turns out my collarbone was completely shattered, which proved her ass wrong, but it only fueled her rage more, it seemed. She became spiteful. She took away all of my skateboards, bikes, and anything that I could ride. My arm was in a sling, so it wasn't like I could use them anyways. But she had no intent on giving them back to me. In fact, she gave them to her own son. Even my own dad said it was for the best because I've shown to be irresponsible with them and I can't use them correctly. The only thing I was able to do was play video games. Barely, considering my arm was completely bundled up. Another few months go by, and my arm is healing up good, and we all go on an easy hike in the desert. We find and pick some wild cactus apples. Excited and eager, I started eating one with the help of my dad. Turns out there were little mites in the fruit, and I contracted scabies. Half of my face swells up in the most morbid of ways. I couldn't talk right and couldn't open one of my eyes. I was totally messed up. My older sister, that I just realized I haven't mentioned at all yet in this post, came to visit me with my 2 nephews. She drove 3 hours just to hang out with me and see how I was doing. As soon as she sees my gruesome swollen face, she screams in terror, grabs her kids and leaves. Needless to say, it made me feel even worse, but I understand. She calls my dad, urging him to take me to the hospital. But my stepmom again refuses, saying it's not that bad and that all I need is a nice warm washcloth. Well, 2 weeks go by and the swelling is reduced, but not completely gone. My sister threatens to call the cops if they don't do something. So my stepmom again tries saying she's gonna feel dumb when it turns out to be nothing. Well, this time doctors say at this point they can't tell what it is. Scabies was the most likely considering the symptoms from what I was told. They said that I should have been there 2 weeks prior when I couldn't open my eye. My stepmom takes this as a win. More time goes by. More crap happens with my stepmom. CPS is called and I'm interviewed. Nothing happens with that. The holidays were ruined by her kids. Yet I was to blame. I ended up basically being the Cinderella of my house at this point. My bed was even moved into the laundry room. 1 year the pipe burst and my room flooded up to 8 inches. Nothing was done about it. Eventually, when I was about 14 years old, I worked up the courage to tell my dad what I thought about her and how she treated me. Well, I guess by this time he was so tainted by her that he began talking like her. He said to get over it. She's not mean. You're just trying to antagonize for the sake of drama. I told him if that's how he feels, then I'm moving out to live with my sister. My sister agrees and I move out. Life was good for a bit till I started missing my dad. I felt like I failed him. So after 2 years living with my sister, I decided to move back in with my dad. Almost on arrival, my stepmom starts her crap all over again, saying comments like, "Great, more unneeded doctor visits," or "No skateboarding, don't want your sister calling CPS again." It was actually my aunt that called, I found out years later. On the day before my 17th birthday, I will never forget the words that came out of her mouth. I was getting breakfast and made a comment on how the house was starting to reek with cigarette smoke. I'll admit, at this point, I was a bit snarky, but I said it to myself. My stepmom wasn't in the room, but she heard me all right. She storms in and tells me, "If you don't like it, go back to your sister's house." Or did she kick your whiny butt out and that's why you're back? I snapped back. I told her to screw off and to unalive herself. She walked up to me and looked down at me. She's a good foot taller than I am and said, "You do it. I freaking dare you." I stare at her in disbelief and she starts laughing. "Freaking pansy, you're weak. Just like your mom." At this point, I have a death grip on my fork with every intention of sticking it in her throat. But I don't. I keep quiet and continue eating my breakfast. That was the first of many comments about my mom. It seems she took a page from her own kids that used to say very similar insults. Only thing is, she was supposedly my mom's best friend. I called her out on this and she tells me to screw off and end myself. Because of the years of mental abuse, I became depressed. Unaliving was on my mind a lot, and she knew it. She egged me on a lot, telling me to say hi to my mom in hell when I get there. She would get drunk and say the most horrible things like, "I hope Satan makes your mom put cigarette butts out on your face for eternity." Eventually, I ended up finding my dad's gun after a few days of snooping in his room when no one was home. I hid it in my room and kept telling myself on repeat, "Next time she's blind drunk, that's my moment." Well, a friend came over one night and we began talking a bit. I told him I was fed up and that I had a plan. I didn't go into details, but he's a smart person. He was able to figure out what I was planning pretty easily. He began crying to me. He pleaded for me not to go through with anything and to move back into my sister's house. This went on for quite a bit, but eventually he talked me out of it. I showed him the gun and he snatched it so fast and took off out of my house and down the road to the lake. He tossed that mother fricker as hard as he could into the water. Somehow seeing that made me feel better. Anyways, I realized this is pretty anticlimactic, but after that, I just ended up moving back in with my sister. No one in the family has any contact with my dad or his wife anymore, and at this point, I think that's his choice. It's been over 10 years since then. I've moved across the country to numerous different states, and I've made a career and name for myself. I got married to my dream girl, and we have the best little girl together. Things could not be better. Last I heard, my stepmom's 2 youngest kids are in rehab centers, and she had a massive heart attack that almost killed her. It surprised me that she even has a heart. Karma, I'm guessing? Anyways, that's my life. Take what you want from this whole thing as you will. I'm just glad to get this off my chest one way or another, and I'm grateful that I had an amazing friend that was able to help me out of my darkest of places. I mean, seriously, Imagine your mom's best friend deciding to play house with your dad the day after your mom passes. I mean, come on. No rule book necessary to know that's all 50 shades of wrong. And the sibling rivalry, I tell ya, this isn't your garden variety, he took my toy scenario. This is some next level psychological warfare. Your dead mom wants a hug. Really? That's absolutely a terrible thing to say, even for a kid. But our hero's resilience here, I'm not going to lie, guys, it's inspiring. Skateboard accident, broken collarbone, stepmom still in denial, didn't slow him down. Contracted scabies from a wild fruit snack and ended up looking like a bad B-movie monster. Just another Tuesday, apparently. And then, the gun. This is where things take a dark, dark turn. But thank God for friends like his who just refuse to let him go down that path. It's a testament to the fact that sometimes the family we choose plays a bigger role than the family we're born into. The happy ending? I won't lie, it's sweet, but there's a bitter aftertaste, right? He's built an amazing life, but the scars remain. Still, it's a good reminder that we all have the power to rise above our circumstances, no matter how grim they may seem. So if this epic tale of resilience doesn't make you smash that like and subscribe button, I don't know what will. With that said, thanks for watching till the end. Love you all and stay safe out there in that crazy world. Much love. Peace.